We're live.
Hello, hello, hello. We're live.
Hello.
Woo!
We made it.
um, Yay! So, for anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Emily, founder of Lunar Pumpkin. I'm an astrologer. I'm a tarot and oracle card reader, and I've been mentored by the motivational speaker, Mr. Les Brown. So, today my special guest, I have Lisa. How you doing, Lisa?
Pretty good. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. So I'm just going to introduce her in one moment. So, Lisa Marie is an astrologer based out of Milwaukee, a metropolitan area, with roots in the Chicagoland area, serving clients worldwide. Lisa is a graduate of Deborah Silverman's Applied Astrology School, which offers a psychology-backed and practical approach to astrology. Lisa uses past, present, and future astrological insights to guide clients in transforming their understanding of themselves, their environment, and the people around them, with an aim at personal enrichment, compassion, and heightened fulfillment in all facets of life. Wow.
It's a wordy bio.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. And just for the background too, we've studied together. So Emily and I. So this is a really cool collaboration of sorts. We actually meet once a month, usually twice a month, hopefully more than that. Life gets in the way, but we usually meet and we have these great conversations together and with our classmates, which, by the way, also Anna-Ree, happy birthday. It's her birthday today.
Happy birthday, Anna-Ree.
So it's cool to actually bring this into the public when we're having these really incredible conversations privately. So I'm glad that we're doing this today. It's really exciting.
Yes. So, what did I say we were going to start with?
Well, do you want to just kind of start talking about, so we can talk about the lunar and solar eclipse, we can talk about the moon in general. I mean, the topic of the moon just on an overreaching sort of subject is really, it's so powerful. There's so many dynamics to it, and I definitely have some favorite tidbits about the moon, as somebody who I think I love and worship the moon more than I do the sun.
Yeah, me too. My first book, actually, well, the first book I remember as a child, and I used to get my parents and whoever would read it to me to read it over and over again, was The Boy Who Wanted the Moon.
Oh,
And
that's so
basically,
cute.
yeah, and in the book, basically, he was asking for all these things. He was saying, I want more food, I want more this, that, and the other. And he said, oh, and now for my next thing, what I want the moon. And there's this image of a ladder up to the moon, and it's always that little bit out of reach.
That's
But
so cute.
yeah, and the
So we're
whole
both
story.
moon women then here.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
And I'm actually pulling up your chart because I know I have a copy of it here.
Oh, yes.
Reminding me of where, oh yeah, so you have a Capricorn moon. Okay. And then I have an Aries moon. So those are two very different manifestations, very different energies, but also there are some similarities as well in terms of it being that cardinal energy, right?
Yeah. So actually, for our listeners, I'm Gemini Sun, I'm Gemini Rising, and as Lisa pointed out, I've got a Capricorn Moon. And what about you, Lisa?
I'm an Aquarius Sun, an Aries Moon, and a Virgo Rising.
Yeah.
So we're both quite dynamic here with Emily with that double Gemini,
Mm,
double air, and her moon being in an earth sign, which is so good for
yes,
all that air for you. And
exactly.
that's why you're able to just get things like all of your thoughts and your ideas, actually putting them into motion. You have that staying power.
Yes, I need it to ground me because
Yes.
otherwise I am just so completely scattered, as our mentor Deborah Silverman would say. People are very scattered with their heads in the clouds, but that needs somewhere to channel. And that high road of Gemini is to be able to speak and to listen in equal amounts, and to actually channel that in such a way that you're able to assimilate the knowledge around you and to share it with the world.
Absolutely. The ability, yes, assimilation, translation.
Mm,
Someone like you that studies astrology and tarot and, doing the oracle cards, all of that divine wisdom, being able to give that to other people, that is definitely the high road Gemini quality or even just the air quality as well.
mm,
But mostly that communication factor is such a big piece of who you are and obviously a very big piece of what you're doing.
yes.
So, and your moon is so how do you wanna take this? Do we
Um,
wanna deep dive? Do we wanna kinda surface, sorta snorkel?
I like that snorkel.
Yeah,
Um, so what I thought we could do was to run through the moon signs first, so people have got something to go with.
sure,
And then maybe from there, I've got a guide that I'm bringing out, free of charge via my email list once I've sorted that, which is working with the lunar cycle. And so I'm
perfect.
hoping within the next couple of days that my email list will be there and I'll be able to share in a little while what I've got in there. And I've got it on a separate screen so I can refer to that and run through each of the phases of the moon and how to work with those. So that was
Excellent.
partially what I was going to talk about here.
So do you wanna go
Um,
ahead and get it started, and then I
yes.
can just throw in my 2 or 3 cents here and there?
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so let me just load up something we have here, which is that one. Okay, so if we were to look at the moon in Aries, which Lisa has, um, it's a very impulsive, and energetic moon, and you likely feel the need to be very independent. Um, is that true for you?
It's very true for me. It's also, a big push at being direct
Yes.
in terms of the way that I tend to feel about any sort of Aries energy, just Aries energy in general, whether
Mm,
it's your moon or your sun. It is a very to me, it's the most raw, uninhibited, very, like, primal type of energy. Out of all of these zodiac signs, Aries embodies that sort of primal fuel, I guess you could say.
mm,
So, it's very much running off of instinct,
yes.
reacting off of instinct, sometimes with that, without having a filter. So, on its own, if you were to look at a moon in Aries, you would say, "Whoa." But, obviously, we don't just isolate one piece of somebody's, astrological chart because it's all in how it all works together. We just look at the moon and we say, "Okay, here's what it is, but here's how everything else interacts." So, but yes, in the general sense, an Aries moon, very direct, very impulsive, very energetic, um, vibrant, but very much the warrior.
Mm. Yeah, it's the I am, and it's that cardinal initiatory energy needs to get things started.
Yes,
Yes,
pushing forward,
beautiful.
no matter what.
Yes. Yeah, fire.
Yes, very
Okay.
fiery.
Mm. So next we have Taurus, and it's all about that practicality. It's grounded, it's earth energy. Um, it is practical, enduring, stable, loyal, and it's all about how that bull energy sort of digs into the senses, and embodies everything. Um, and yeah, the needs are likely the need to um, know what you have and your worth.
Yes,
What would you add to that?
absolutely. I would say that that's a great way to encapsulate that. I think that it is. I liked the imagery that you said about the bull digging in, like digging its feet into something. A bull
Mm,
obviously carries around a lot of weight.
sure.
So having that staying power, having that sort of stoicism, but
Mm,
also being very, to me, it's very much about, yes, what do I have that brings me comfort?
yes.
What do I need for security? Um, I think that that's a really good way to wrap up that Taurus energy.
Mm. Yeah, it's all about the senses, and to me, that
Yes,
is kind of if you can't sense and feel, taste, smell, and actually be part of what's going on, it must be very disorientating.
absolutely. Yes, very much needing to feel connected to the body, needing to
Yeah.
feel that grounded sense. And we're talking about all of this in the theme of the moon representing the emotional body, the emotional um interaction, the way that we digest things emotionally or don't, right?
Mm,
So in terms of that Taurus energy, absolutely. That is a great way to sum that up.
yeah. And then we have Gemini. So it's changing, it's flexible because it has that mutable energy. It's air energy. So as we said, it's quite intellectual, but it's also having that communication, the messenger between, I say, everything really, that messenger ability. Um, Often talks fast, talking about the feelings. um, what would you add?
Definitely talking about the feelings, putting words, whether ideally it's communicating to other people, but whether
Yes.
that's actually having that communication in a conversation, or is it journaling, is it
Yes.
singing?
Mm.
Sometimes it can be taking on a musical sort of form, but very much processing the emotions in also a thought process. Instead of
Mm.
it being like a very intuitive feeling, it is definitely more heady. It is very
Yeah.
much, let me run through the 800 million different possibilities around what I'm feeling and let me pick out which one. But with an air sign, being able to run through those 800 million possibilities happens like that.
Yes.
Whereas other signs are going to feel things, or they're going to get flashes of an intuition, or they're really going to dig in, like much like that Taurus energy, and practically process. Whereas
Mm.
air signs will just go after their
Yes.
computer brains have worked everything out.
Yes. It can be the whole intellectualizing rather than the feeling, the emotion. Yeah,
That's a
I
great way
can
to put it.
imagine.
Yes.
Mm. I'm just gonna turn the light on because it's quite dark here. Apologies.
No worries. Let me adjust my light here too. It is Emily's evening and my dreary morning,
Oh, is it really dreary
which is
there then?
It's very dreary, but it's kind of nice. It's nice to have those days where you're not feeling called by the sun to be out and about, especially on a day like today, me not feeling super great, and also just energetically, and that's the question. Do I have an illness, or is this more of like some sort of an energetic calling for me to slow down a little bit because things have been so fast moving and we've got all these different energies going on um as of recently, but we'll get into that more
We will,
after
yes.
we run through the signs here.
Where did we get to? We
So
got
next
to
is Cancer.
Cancer. Oh, yes, and Cancer is, of course, ruled by the moon.
Yes.
So, very important here. Um, Cancer, it's a water sign. It's cardinal again, so it's the getting things started, but maybe started in more of an emotional way rather than the physical fiery Aries style. Um, so yes, as we say, it's emotions, it's the feminine, it's protection, it's about safety, security. Um, I would say family as well, because it's the nourishing of the home and that environment. What else?
To me,
Can
Cancer
be the
is
historian.
mhm. I
Yeah, getting
also
into the
think
ancestors.
yes, that is such a big theme for Cancer. I think that one of the biggest keywords for Cancer would be nurturing.
Mm,
To me,
yeah.
that says it all pretty much. Excuse me, the dynamic of Cancer being very emotionally driven with that cardinal energy, to nurture, to take care of
Mm,
things, to keep what's around them safe, whether it's people or if it's themselves, creating this home space where they feel comfortable. That's what is embodied by that shell of Cancer. It's a form of protection. So that's where all of that gets wrapped up into the actual glyph of Cancer being a crab.
yes. Oh, yeah, exactly.
For the
Crab has,
for
of course.
anybody that's watching this that maybe isn't so sure. So trying to broad spectrum the knowledge here.
Yes, 'cause, Cancer is the crab, and the crab has the protective outer shell and the mushy emotional center. Um, and for me, when I've met people who have a lot of Cancer energy in their charts, it tends to be they're very protective of people that are family or close friends that they actually feel are family. So
Mhm.
it's very much protecting and making sure that everybody feels that nourishment, whether it's through food, whether it's through the environment, or having your emotions heard and felt fully.
Absolutely. So
And
next
then we
is
have
Leo, back in the fire
Leo,
signs.
back in fire. um, yes. So Leo likes the feeling of being center stage, to be appreciated, and to know that they're fully heard and seen. Um, it's also about courage and about the pride of showing up fully as they are. Um, what else?
It's a fire so it is a fire sign, and it is one that I think one of the biggest takeaways for me for Leo, one of the biggest maybe misconceptions until you begin to study is that Leo actually is can it, even though it's flashy and very
mm,
courageous, there is that shyness factor.
yes,
So speaking to you, what you had said as far as it being a sign that needs love and sort of that affirmation from other people, that's how Leo overcomes the shyness. But it's going to
yes,
need some sort of admiration back in order to really step into its full potential.
I love that.
Mhm.
Well, love. Leo is that love, and Leo is ruled
And
by the sun, so it actually needs
yes.
to shine.
Yes, and actually also the, childlike quality of Leo,
Yeah.
and that doesn't have to necessarily have a negative connotation, but more so that it's a childlike quality in that it's fun, it's
Yeah.
exuberant, it likes to be playful. So where you've got let's compare Aries and Leo, the 2 fire signs that we've spoken of so far. Aries is so, like, guttural, instinctive, and rawr. Whereas Leo has that fire also, but it's also more like, "Hey, let's not be so aggressive. Like, let's have a little bit of fun
Mm.
with this."
It's got that regal quality as well, I find.
Mhm.
I didn't get that.
Oop, sorry, my watch is listening.
Oh, well, it's nice to be listened to, even if it's your phone.
Right. So that's a great way to wrap that up.
Mm.
And now
I'm not
we
sure.
we move on to Virgo.
Yes. So Virgo's the details. It's another earth sign, and to me, Virgo loves to think about the health, the routine, the schedule, and putting that sacred into everyday life. It needs that sacredness because without it, it is just the run of the mill and it wants to be in service. So the need to be serving people, but in a way that's authentic. What would you add?
I would say that that's beautiful. A way that's authentic, but also a way that is also unsolicited. Is that the right word that
Hmm.
I'm looking for? In the sense of that Virgo likes, like you said, that to maintain the sacredness, to maintain the purity of things, but sometimes at the absolute detriment of themselves when they're trying to fix everything around them. Everything becomes their responsibility. And they feel that emotionally. And oftentimes it
Hmm.
can manifest physically into you see a lot of people with big Virgo energy in their charts. Actually, they do get some sort of like energetic disturbances that manifest physically. And that leads back to that wanting to take hold and take control of everything so that they can perfect it and protect it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Virgo needs to understand that that's where that unsolicited sort of element comes in, right? Where not everything is meant to be your responsibility to fix or be
It's
your
all
responsibility to be connected to.
yes. It's all very well wanting things to be beautiful and organized and to pay attention to all those details, but sometimes things can be lost if there's too much detail. Sometimes it's being present, isn't it? And it's I guess
Yes.
it's that learning to be present, learning to make sure that actually you can delegate. You don't have to do all the
Mhm.
things as long as you know that they're
Correct.
being done.
And that being present, like you were saying, is also a big piece of that being able to step out of that anxiety space, being able to
Yes.
understand that not everything is meant to be on your plate. You're not meant to carry the weight of the world.
Oh, wow, yes. There we go. Yep, that's the big money note there, the weight of the world.
I like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's and we said Virgo is also, not only is it an earth sign, but it's also mutable.
Yes.
So
And
it
it's
does
also
have that ability to shift, but not as easily, I would say. If I were to look at the mutable signs, I would feel like Virgo is probably the most difficult to shift. To me
mm,
to me it feels like the most steadfast sort of the mutable signs.
yes, 'cause the Gemini loves to do the weaving in and out and Virgo and Gemini are both ruled by Mercury, so it's that sign for communication, for thoughts, for speech, communication in so many different ways. It doesn't have to be just verbally, it's the written, sometimes it's the subtlety. It's not necessarily that it has to be communicated in any way, it's just acknowledged. It's that
Right.
acknowledgement and the message that it can give to either the world or the person individually. But Virgo is very much more on the organized way of looking at that, and it has to have the structure and routine in it.
Definitely.
But as far as we'll get to Pisces at the end, but
And
Pisces is more
Sagittarius,
of the
yeah,
floating, and obviously, yes, Sagittarius as well, yeah.
as far
But
as the notable
yes.
signs.
Mm.
So lots of Virgo talk there. Lots of good talking points and high road advice for Virgo there.
Mm. I do
But
love Virgo.
again, not oh, I do too. I'm a Virgo rising. So
Oh,
um so it's something that's very near and dear to me, something that I can really speak to because I feel all of those high road things and I've definitely experienced those low road things as well. And it's something that in the people that I've met, which interestingly I've met a lot of Virgo risings lately. I've done a lot of readings for Virgo risings in the last like 2 weeks. I
yeah.
swear if it were I would say 90% of the people that I read for were Virgo
Wow.
risings. I'm like, "What's going on here?" Um, but but it is any sort of Virgo placement can be really powerful in a lot of good ways, and also, there are some detriments if left unchecked.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the checking in point, the awareness.
Yes.
'Cause awareness
Yes,
is that
absolutely.
point that we can change anything that needs to change or maintain what needs to work well.
Yes, digging into that mutability
Mm,
when the time is right, and like you said, being present. So important for Virgo.
yeah. And then we have Libra. So Libra is that next kind of elevation of the love. We had the Leo, which started off the love of the family and in particular children and the love of fun and that love of shining brightly for being seen and heard fully. And then you've got the next elevation of love, which is Libra, in the sense of Libra is about relationships and how we relate to everybody, whether it's how we relate to ourselves or whether it's how we relate in relationships, as in romantic or intimate ones, but also how we relate in business, because it's not just about relationships, although it has that potential to have sort of marriage and commitment and everything. Um,
Romantic sort of ties, but yes, it's very much all about any type of partnership.
yeah,
And I think the most overlooked piece of that, in my opinion, is the partnership with self also, because that's where Libra tends
yeah,
to forget or leave for last.
yes.
Excuse me for a
Mm.
moment too. I'm listening. I just have
Oh,
to run really quick.
no worries. I'll just continue. So yes, also I feel that there's about love and harmony and justice. I'm sure Lisa will add to a little bit in a minute, but um, very much the sense that Libra needs balance, and balance is key to most things in life, whether it's balance in relationships or balance in life between work and between play, between love, and just everywhere in your life, really. So, yes, although Libra needs to partner in some respects, it's realizing that that relationship with self is where things are felt best when you know who you are and your why in life. You can do that. You can accomplish most things.
Beautifully said. I don't think that there's anything else that I can add to Libra. I think that was perfect.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, so after Libra, of course, we have Scorpio.
So this is a big one for me too.
Ah, yes. Scorpio dives deep.
Yes,
um,
yes. And my moon's in the 8th house, so
ah,
um, this is definitely felt as well. But
mm,
it being a water sign, it's automatically going to shift back to that intuitive
intuitive, reflective,
depth.
yeah. Mm,
Yes. Very much about stillness, the way to manage all of that deep, dark waters, which isn't meant to sound scary, but it's just the truth. I mean, Scorpio is very much about confronting fear, confronting that which scares us, emotionally being invested in taking on those really uncomfortable situations and subject matters and being able to transform the experience. I think that's the biggest part about Scorpio. But it's knowing the sweet spot is knowing when to bring yourself back up for air, not to dive down too deep if you're not ready for it. So it's knowing your inner ability, and that can shift too day by day. I mean, there's a million different ways to look at it. Obviously, there's the biometrics and different cycles of what we're capable of, like mentally and emotionally and physically on a daily basis. So there are going to be different days, and also in somebody's astrological chart that says this person is really able to really go deep. And then some people maybe not as much. And that's not to say
mm.
that one is better than the other. It's just what your astrological constitution supports. And for
Yes.
some people, it's knowing people with a lot of water, it's knowing when you need to allow yourself to come back up for air. And the biggest thing for me with people with, let's say, a water moon or a lot of water in their chart is boundaries. I can't say this enough. And
Mm,
especially and that plays into that emotional aspect too. Because if you're picking up on other people's energies or you're listening to somebody and you feel for them so deeply, you can actually start to internalize that as well. So that's not only when you're confronting your own thoughts and your own feelings around a subject matter, knowing when to come up for air, but it's also when you're with someone else, whether you're physically with them, talking to them, or you're reading things on the internet, it's important to make sure that you are allowing yourself some space. You're holding space for the space in between you and whatever you're confronting.
oh, beautiful. That's beautiful. Um,
Powerful stuff.
well, yeah. I
How
was
can you
thinking, well,
not how
actually,
can you
I need to
not,
listen. I might learn
there's
something
no
here.
there's no light way really to talk about Scorpio. It's just
Mm,
it is so powerful. It's and to a lot of people, I'm sure Emily, you can definitely attest to this as well. Like generally speaking, there are a lot of um I guess misconceptions and fears. There's a lot of doom and gloom around certain signs, and Scorpio would be one of them. And I just feel like it's really unfair to have that type of perception, especially when each sign is able to give us so many gifts. Each sign each sign is beautiful, truly. Each sign
mm.
has a high road, each sign has a low road. Some of us do certain signs better than others, and that's not neither good nor bad, it just is. And I think that that's such an overarching theme of the universe, like universal and spiritual law is. that there really isn't a good or a bad, it just is. So respecting, shutting, even though we can't have this like very light superficial conversation about Scorpio, it's just important to really talk about the beauty of it and opportunity.
Yes. I do think that Scorpio has that ability to see through any surface things, but also there can be that fear of opening up and the caution that comes with it. Because if I share too much, then actually, who's going to judge me on this? But then it's also got um, that Mars quality to it, because traditionally we had both rulers. We had Mars was the ruler before we saw past Saturn within the zodiac and the planetary, um,
I love
the
you
planets.
bringing the history into it. Yes,
Sorry, I,
absolutely.
I go deep with lots of things.
I
Can't
love
help it.
it.
Um,
Perfect.
so although Scorpio is technically a water sign and ruled by Pluto in modern day astrology, and Pluto is about transformation, we also have the Mars get up and go, because it needs to actually be somebody who is accomplishing what they set out to do, even though
Absolutely.
they still feel, again, that whole weight of the world thing, as though there's the inner depths that still need to kind of surface when they're ready, as you've kind of touched upon. It's kind of, am I comfortable sharing my deeper emotions, or am I comfortable hiding some of that away until I've processed it, until I've done the shadow work?
You hit the
Because
nail on the head with that.
that shadow work
Absolutely.
is what we all need to be able to do to evolve.
Yes.
We all need to
And
know our sort of what we share with the world and what we don't so much, and work on what's uncomfortable, because they're usually the things that trigger us from other people. They're actually what we need to work on.
mhm, that's a great point. And speaking to what you said as far as the the concern about exposing yourself, that's where, with what you're thinking and feeling and speaking to those things, that's where Scorpio does have that sort of Martian reactivity, where it is a water sign, but there are elements of it that make it feel like a fiery sign.
Yeah.
And if you look at the glyph of Scorpio, the scorpion, actually there's three glyphs to Scorpio, but we'll
Oh,
just
you're gonna talk
focus
about
on the
yes.
scorpion.
Well, yes.
um,
I was gonna say you can't talk
but
about Scorpio without talk about the lark and the phoenix.
right. But let's focus on the scorpion.
Sorry.
Kind of akin to Cancer, the crab with its protective shell. Scorpio also kind of has that as well, but it's got the stinger. If you get into a situation where you're confronting Cancer, the worst you're going to get is they're going to run away, or they're going to come back and react and pinch you. Now, Scorpio, on the other hand, you confront them. And we're talking about this in terms of the emotional aspect, because we're talking about the moon. So the confrontation of Scorpio either is I run away and you can't find me, or I sting you with venom, and you've got to watch out for that stinger, because it is coming even faster than those crab pinchers. And it sounds very like, "Oh, that's so kind of generic," like, but it's so true to how a Scorpio moon, a Scorpio in its emotional body is going to react. It's either going to be able to, when it's ready, it can speak to, the highest truth, whether you
Yeah.
like it or not. But if it feels like it is being attacked, that stinger is coming for you.
Yeah, if it's being ostracized, yeah.
Mhm. Yes.
I don't
Anyway,
know
we
why,
could
but that
talk
word
about
had to come
Scorpio
out.
for we could talk about Scorpio, I'm sure, for like an hour.
Mm.
So let's move on to Sagittarius, which is such a big theme right now as we're in Sag season and having the solar eclipse and the Sag new moon.
Yeah. My husband's Sagittarius as well.
That's right. Happy birthday to him last weekend, right?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So Sagittarius being another fire sign, also
Yeah,
mutable,
yes.
fun.
Sagittarius, fun, a little
Go
bit
ahead.
blunt.
Yes,
Um,
just a little bit.
just a little bit. Absolutely hilarious though. Um, oh, I've lost my train of thought.
Optimistic in the
Oh
way
yes, the
it
whole
processes emotions, right? So it's definitely not going to be as dark and dreary as a Scorpio per se. It's going to be able to take their emotions and maybe brush their shoulders off a little bit faster and say, you know what, it kind of is what it is. But they'll also, like Emily
mm,
said, speak very, very truthfully, honestly, with a lot of force behind it, but more so in a casual way than like an Aries, where Aries is gonna
mm,
be very, very blunt and assertive. I think Sagittarius has a lot more tact to it because it's got that sort of more of a lighthearted type of quality.
yeah. So there's kind of what have I got? Um, there's the resilience there, and as we said, the boldness of just kind of, yep, I'm fire. I'm going to speak it out. I'm not holding back. But at the same token, I'm still going to play with it. I'm going to have fun with it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Um, okay. So then, is there anything else you want to add to Sagittarius?
It's funny because I feel like we just talked for 10 minutes about Scorpio, and here we are in Sag season. I'm like, "No, that's pretty good." No,
Oh,
I think that
sweet.
that's a great way to sum up Sagittarius. They're definitely with that mutable energy feeling um, more, like I said, lighthearted, easygoing,
Mm,
unless they're really feeling maybe disenfranchised or feeling attacked. They will say what they feel, say what they mean, and mean what they say.
mm,
It's but they're able to walk away from it, I feel like, a lot more unscathed than maybe others, just because they can kind of brush off and look at the bigger picture instead of focusing on how impactful whatever confrontation or conversation is going on is for them. Some
the
signs might
minutiae, yeah.
feel that they might feel that a lot more, whereas Sagittarius says, okay, that's just, water under the bridge. Let's look at the bigger picture and move forward. Because it's a very forward thinking sign.
Mm. Yeah, it's got that wisdom behind it, so
Hmm.
yeah.
That higher
Hmm.
education, yeah, that wisdom.
Um, yeah,
So Capricorn,
and then we move
that should
into
just be all you.
Capricorn, yeah. It's the needing to have achievement, needing the schedule, and kind of needing to be practical rather than just feeling all the feelings and being kind of washed out by them. It needs, okay, well, what can I do about it? Because otherwise, I'm just being a wimp. It's it's kind of,
So
yeah.
driven. Yes. So
Mhm.
driven to
But then
find a
also,
way out.
yeah, but it's also feeling that kind of karma. Did I cause this? Did I do that? Well, actually, if somebody did that to me, I would really dislike that. But then if I did that to somebody else, how would they feel? And it's kind of sometimes you feel we get back to that subject again. It's the weight of the world in some respects because it's kind of, well, actually, if I don't sort something out, who will? Because I don't want to be, I don't want to be affecting people negatively, but also I
And
don't
you
want.
also to be
So
reliant.
yes, you wanna be that reliable
Mhm.
person that people can rely on. Well, yeah, it's that earth quality of, I wanna be practical, I wanna be resilient, I want people to know that I'm here to be supporting. Um, Self-control, yeah, that's the thing,
Do
and
you feel
stability.
like this can manifest into, like at times, though, when we're talking about it from an emotional state, is it like, a my way or the highway type of situation where
Yeah, sometimes.
Okay, okay.
If I'm totally honest, yes, sometimes. And the
Yeah,
only thing that
because that's
actually.
very much that energy of Capricorn.
Yeah,
If you're feeling that conviction, which generally I feel like Capricorn processing things is going to be very black and white. There's not going to be a lot of gray area.
yeah,
So
it's the
when you're
karma.
convicted, you are convicted.
Yeah.
We can be honest here, Emily.
Yeah, I was
We just
thinking
are who
come
we
hell
are,
or high
right?
water. It's
Yeah,
getting
hell or
done.
high water. I like that. Yes.
Yeah, it's gotta get done.
Wonderful.
But that
So
that
anything
again
else to
can come
add
to
to
the whole
Capricorn?
detriment thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, that can come to the whole
Definitely.
detriment thing as well. Even if you're feeling awful, you're still gonna get it done, even if it
Right.
means that you completely wipe yourself out, you don't maybe nourish yourself in some way. Yeah. 'Cause you feel
Absolutely.
responsible for others.
Yes. With Saturn being its ruling planet.
Yeah.
All about responsibility, all about
And
karma.
purpose, and purpose.
Yes,
You gotta
and
have purpose.
purpose. Absolutely.
So then we get to Aquarius. I feel it's more of a fun one because actually you've got that little quirkiness and yeah, you can sort of walk away from some of the emotional minutiae, um, and see how it would be for the community and sort of you get pretty back to some of the intellectualizing emotions rather than necessarily always feeling them. What we typically got, um, yeah, but there's still that intuition as well, but it's gonna be coming in at different points, I think. It's not so
Mhm.
necessarily grounded, but it's also not very watery either. It's kind of, it holds space for others to feel, but doesn't always feel the emotions themselves. I don't know. What would you say? It's
Well,
quite an
it does
unusual one.
speak it's yes, it speaks to the detachment that Aquarius embodies and is capable of. Again, that can play out in a high road or a low road situation. There's some times where it's helpful to be able to detach emotionally from a situation, but then there's other times where Aquarius might do that as a defense mechanism and then come off
Mhm.
cold and aloof, and then nothing gets resolved. Um, I think the other thing to speak to with Aquarius is it being a fixed sign that there are a lot of that again, because it's an air sign, it's going to be thinking through all of the 800 million possibilities. But if it and it's open to hearing you out, but if it is convicted, this kind of similar to Capricorn, like with that fixed energy, you're there's that stubbornness. So
Yeah.
from an emotional standpoint, talking about the moon, a moon in Aquarius would say to me that um, there are times where it is looking at the bigger picture, it is looking at the collective conscious sort of community, humanity. It's feeling those things, but it's also not wanting to budge on things that it is feeling very profoundly. Like if something strikes Aquarius, that's it, right?
Mm.
and try to talk them down, but they've got the gift of gab with all that air. Good luck.
Yes. I was just thinking of, how in tarot it's the star, and the star is all about inspiration, and it's having the kind of one foot on the ground and one in the water, and then holding space with a jug pouring um, back into the feelings side. So it's kind of there's the, wanting to support others whilst also holding space,
Mhm.
for their own, but how do you do that in such a way that is necessarily going to be beneficial for all? Um,
Right.
but yeah, I do think that Aquarius would be very good at holding space for others, but maybe in that way, they sometimes neglect themselves and what they're really feeling or thinking. Um,
And that's why I feel like maybe on an intuitive level, when it's more of the manifesting in the lower road where it will shut off emotionally and detach. Because maybe on an intuitive level, Aquarius knows where the limits are
hmm,
of not holding that space for themselves or exposing themselves too much. Whereas the high road of Aquarius and the wisdom is accomplishing all those things that you said, holding space for themselves while taking care of others, while thinking of the community. Um, and that's yeah, it's what makes Aquarius definitely a very dynamic, interesting, oftentimes seen as eccentric sign
yeah.
because how can you even really speak to it without it sounding somewhat conflicted and very sort of heady and type of thing, you know? So Aquarius is very interesting, especially coming from somebody who is an Aquarius sun and Aquarius Mercury and all of those things. So yeah. But and popular misbelief too is that Aquarius, it is an air sign, it is not a water sign, even though it is called the water bearer. But I feel
Hmm,
like that's what explains your perception of holding space for others, right? Like being the water bearer,
hmm.
holding that sensitivity, holding that compassion for other people. So how do you walk with that as
Yeah.
Aquarius?
I think it's also the, inspiration side of it. It's kind of I inspire others by my way of acting, thinking, doing, and connecting, whilst they inspire me too, and now I need to work out where I feel everything will be in between.
Love that. Beautiful.
The only way I could think of it was looking at the star card. I was thinking, well, just in my head, Aquarius is just the star because actually, without having one foot on the earth and one in the water and holding the space in the middle, how on earth do you describe it? As you say, it's so unusual.
Right. But I love the imagery that came up too on my end with being the water bearer. If you're thinking about a person holding like a giant big pottery vase of water,
Yeah.
and that water being that compassion and that sensitivity and that
Mm.
emotional connection to other people, how do you walk with that without spilling it all over the place? And
Oh,
spilling it all
yes.
over the place would be the manifestation of breaking boundaries, of absorbing some of that energy. And then the detachment would be setting that vase down and walking away, but that's not what Aquarius is meant to do.
No.
So as an Aquarius, how do you learn how to carry that vase properly? How much water to have in there to serve everyone, but also be able to walk with it in such a way that you're not going to spill it all over yourself or hurt yourself.
Wow. I love that so much.
Powerful. Yeah,
Yeah.
we need to, like, isolate that and talk about that at a different time because that's
Yes.
some big stuff. Let's break
You can
down
tell we're
the
astrologers. We can't do one
yes.
thing lightly. We need to actually appreciate every sign in its equality, and
Yes.
everyone needs to know that they're all okay.
Maybe we should do a sign series. tied
Yeah, it
in
should.
tarot and the glyphs of astrology. Whoa, okay, there we
Yep.
go.
Next episode created.
So let's
Oh,
talk about Pisces.
yes. Last but by no means least, we love Pisces too.
Absolutely, yes. The
Um,
culmination, some say the culmination of all of these zodiac signs. Pisces has
yes,
a little
yes,
bit of
because you've had to
everything.
live through all the others in order to get to where you
Mhm.
are.
Yes, being a
Mm,
cycle. But Pisces
because it's
is
mutable, it's
the mhm. Yes, mutable, a water sign, so very sensitive, very and sensitive to okay, really quick Lisa soapbox moment. Sensitive is not a bad thing.
no.
I feel like there is a negative connotation in the world, in society towards sensitivity, and it is not a bad thing. Sensitivity is something that is a blessing, but it is something that cannot go unchecked. This is where that whole boundary piece gets wrapped in because all of you can feel so much as a Pisces and a Pisces moon. You can feel emotions from people walking into a room before, or maybe you're having a conversation with somebody and they're telling you, "Oh, everything's fine. Yeah, I'm great. Like life's good, da da da." But what you're feeling is totally different, and that's something that is a very powerful gift. And something that as a Pisces, you need to learn how to speak to with that tact. Being able to
Mm.
say, "Well, okay, I hear you, but wait a second." Because I hear you, but I'm feeling something different. So can we speak to that?
Yes, I have high sensitivity. So with my Jupiter, and Jupiter is that very much expansive planet that really likes joy, but also likes to be larger than life. And so my expansion and my joy is within spirituality. So with my Pisces there, my Jupiter in Pisces, it's kind of yeah, I'll get what you say. I have that high sensitivity. I'll walk into a room or I'll show up somewhere and think, this is really heavy energy. And sometimes the want or the need is to run away from it and find your own space, um, which I'm sure that lots of Pisces people would feel, people with a lot of Pisces in their chart. So they'd want to have the experiences. Maybe it's I want to dance with something. I want to create poetry. I want to write. I want to talk, but I don't want to be center of attention because I want to just be in the present moment. But when it gets too much, I want my silence. I want my peace. I want to get out because I need to actually then get back to me. Where am I in this and where is everybody else? Because as you say, it's the feeling everybody else and not knowing where you fit within that. It's so watery, it's so fluid, and it's sort of floating away from what reality might be at times, and then knowing,
Right.
okay, I need to come back and ground to it somehow.
Because Pisces is that the double fish
Yeah,
between two worlds sometimes
yeah.
can be very foggy, ruled by Neptune.
Mm,
Sometimes they're, yeah, where do I end and where do you begin type of thing.
yes.
I also have Jupiter in Pisces,
Ah.
which is a generational thing because
Oh,
we're,
actually, that's yes, of course. It
but
might be.
for the sake of this whole conversation and how it manifests differently, because without teaching too much here, but your Jupiter is in the 11th house. So that's speaking very much to your emotional connection with
The
community.
others. Yeah, with community.
And then mine is in the 7th house. So very much everything that Emily had said at her introduction of Pisces, if you were to translate that into that partnership piece.
Yeah.
So into my relationships, both romantic and platonic, into my work relationships, my coworkers, even Emily, for example, in certain ways, we're colleagues. So that definitely speaks to um, my relationship with Jupiter and Pisces, but in my 7th house versus Emily's in her 11th. And it's just all how it plays out differently, which is why it's so important to have an understanding of your chart, but a proper
Yeah.
understanding at that, because looking at an astrological chart without a base of knowledge is overwhelming.
Yes, I can
And
imagine.
because I can attest to that. I remember when before I had professionally studied, um, but and it can be confusing, and there's also a lot of misleading information out there. So it's important to make sure that whatever knowledge you're getting is quality knowledge and it's accurate. And if I can also kind of, with my Aquarian mind here, if I can also kind of segue really quick too, one of the things that I like to think about when it comes to finding an astrologer that works for you is it's almost like finding a hairstylist, right? Like, so each hairstylist, everybody knows how to cut hair. So every astrologer knows how to read a chart, but everybody has like a different approach. Some people have gone to the same schools, some have gone to different schools, some are completely self-taught, which is kind of scary if you think about it. I don't want
Yes.
anybody self-taught touching my hair. But everybody kind of has a different sort of approach, and you're going to feel more comfortable with certain people, maybe even at certain times in your life where you find one astrologer that you really vibe with for years, and then you end up finding somebody who for whatever reason at that point in your life is just more attuned to what you want. Like, for instance, me with my hair, the hairstylist that I had been seeing years ago would have never turned my hair purple, but the one that I have today, she and I are just so in touch, and she intuitively knows what's good for me. She's also not going to lead me in the wrong direction. She doesn't tell me what to do, and that's the same thing with us as astrologers. We don't tell you what to do. There's
No,
free will. We're not
obviously, yes.
scary.
No, no, we just
But
want what's best for you.
we're going to give you the building blocks to, and the keys, and the translation of your roadmap to be able to tell you, hey, this is a good route to take, or you can take this one over here. You can also take this one, but it's going to be a longer road. There's going to be some more bumps. But oftentimes with bumps as well, those obstacles are opportunities for growth. So it's all in what you want. Anyway, I'm sorry because I just totally went off.
No, I was just thinking, yep, growth. As soon as you said road bumps, I was thinking, yep, growth points, growth points.
Yes.
He's gonna say
Yes.
it. You did.
But
Mm.
so I apologize for going off subject because we were just finishing up with Pisces, and I have no idea how my brain went there, but I just felt like it need to be said. So
Boundaries and growth. The two
boundaries and
huge
growth.
subjects in
Yes.
astrology, regardless of where your entry point is.
And boundaries and growth with Pisces too. If you think about Pisces being the end of the astrological cycle, so it's kind of wrapping things up. And that's why it's got like a
Mhm.
little bit of flavor of everything.
Yeah.
But it's also the sign that is the most spiritual, I would say, the most like divine sort of emotional connection. It's a powerful
Mm.
one.
Yeah. And that brings us back to the moon again. And
Yes.
interestingly, actually, the moon in tarot is actually ruled by Pisces. But I think it's
Oh,
for all the reasons that we said, because it needs to have that kind of that deeper intuition, that subconscious realm that sometimes is a bit kind of it's not
disorienting.
grounded. It's disorientating,
Yeah.
yeah. and
Mhm.
that's how tarot represents it. But actually, there's always going to be that high and that low road. And as an astrologer, I want to kind of show people that it doesn't have to be scary. So,
Correct. And I think from the astrological standpoint of it, of the moon being ruled by Cancer, yeah, if I said
yeah,
that right, I'm
yeah,
not
in
sure.
astrology, yes.
But in terms of that, it's because it's meant to represent the mother,
Yeah.
that maternal, Emily spoke a lot to that home piece. So that's really interesting though. I like Pisces and the moon together. I feel like that's definitely a lot more accurate in terms of like the overall power of the moon, but it's all up for individual interpretation
Of course.
within boundaries, of course.
Yes, yes. Right. Okay. So I can't remember where we're going to go next. I did say, but I can't remember.
So I've got a little bit of time left here. So
Okay,
go ahead.
maybe I should actually dive into working with the lunar cycle as I'd
Okay,
kind of
yeah.
outlined. Yeah. So where's my little document, which people will be able to get themselves at some point. Okay. So we go through the phases of the moon, basically. And just for context, I was born under a disseminating moon, which the moon looks like it's bulging, but actually it's just about to get smaller again. So very much in the waning phase. And Lisa, I believe you were born under a waxing crescent.
Yes.
Which is why I put it underneath your image as I looked it up. For anybody who's interested in looking at which phase they were born under, I will happily give that in readings.
And I also have a great book too, Moon Phase Astrology.
Ooh.
Lovely book.
Who's that one by?
But this is by Raven Caldera.
Okay.
And this gives a nice breakdown of the moon in each of its phases in each sign. So you're able to reference that in one material. But anyway, I'm interested to hear about your moon phases.
I love Stephen Forrest. And I'm going to get hopefully one of his books for Christmas. Yeah, just his way of describing things with the moon is just so beautiful. But also, before I studied DSA astrology, Deborah Silverman applied astrology, I was looking at how Yasmin Boland, who's a astrologer based in the UK, but she's actually Australian. And originally she was a journalist. But the way that she looks at what she determines as moonology, so it's ways to manifest with the moon, is how I kind of put everything together when I learned my astrology. And I've also was doing yoga in relation to what phases of the moon we were in as well, through Yoga with Cassandra.
That's very cool. I like that.
I love that. So you're doing sort of like more yin yoga, so it's sort of the low impact held poses for a long amount of time without warming up first, so that your body kind of relaxes into it, rather than focusing on the muscles and being really high energy like you would at full moon. New moon, you want to be more gentle. I did a ceremony actually, which people can get if they join my Patreon. It has Trish from Lighthouse Yoga, I believe, is her website.
Which, if anybody is watching this
sequence in there for us.
If anybody is watching this live or today, at some point later on, or under a new moon. It is important to make sure that you're even though we've got this exuberant Sagittarius energy, like it is important to slow down a little bit. As Emily said with the new moon. It's a
Mm,
time for like a more muted energy, taking care of yourself, being more nurturing to yourself.
yeah. Okay, I'll fire away then. So, at new moon, we have the moon conjunct the sun, which means next to. Oh, we have a comment. Thank you. So, the new moon is all about new beginnings. So we're encouraged here to set intentions. So it's a goal that you'd like to work on for approximately a month, because the name month came from month, is what they used to say, because of the same amount of time. So I think it's 28 and a half days or 29 and a half days, something along those lines, for one lunar cycle. So we say that conception happens at the new moon, as the moon is, well, from our standpoint, we can't see the moon, so we are plunged into darkness, and that's associated with the season of winter. Because at new moon, the idea being that things fall away and we go inward, we reflect, and it gets ready for us moving and things beginning to grow, like a seed is planted in the soil, ready to grow when it gets to the first quarter moon, the next phase along. So as we've already mentioned, things like meditating, things like doing very, very light yoga or deep breathing are
Taking
very good to do at
baths.
new moon. Taking baths, yes, that's another good one. So what have I said here? Our minds struggle to distinguish between what has or is happening and what is our goal or dreams. So nourish your mind daily with meditation or deep diaphragmatic breathing. When setting intentions or making your goals, allow your mind to tap into your senses. What would it feel like to have your dreams and goals achieved? How would it look, taste, or smell? And if we feel the intensity of what we want to call into our lives for 68 seconds at least, then we have more chance of it actually occurring. We don't just sit, wait, and wish. We use the cycle from that point of reflection to taking small action steps till we eventually get closer to our goals. That's the whole idea of manifesting with the moon. So setting an affirmation to work with from the new moon onwards throughout the whole of that lunar cycle is a great thing to do. And one of the people that I really love who actually sets intentions, or at least she did, so Louise Hay, I don't know whether you've heard of her.
Mhm.
She was actually the founder of Hay House, which is a company that publishes lots of different books and lots of card decks and things like that. It really taps into that whole inspiration and feel good and self-growth and self-care and all of that wonderful stuff. But Louise Hay, one of my favourite quotes from her is, "A rising tide lifts all boats."
I love that.
So yeah, I think. So yeah, one of her affirmations was, what was it? Oh, I am happy, healthy, wealthy, and wise. And that was one of her most famous affirmations that she used to use.
I love
Um,
that. That's lovely.
yeah, I think that covers what a lot of people want to feel, because we
Mhm.
manifest on the emotion, and the emotion sees us through to what we want to achieve, and then we take the action steps to go with it.
which today would be a great day to adopt an affirmation like
It
that
would. Yeah.
and really move forward with it, but be committed to it. That's not to
Yes.
say that if you fall off the wagon one day that it disrupts the entire cycle. That's not to say that, but it's just setting the intention to be one with your affirmation and to really
Yeah.
carry it with you through the cycle is really
Yes.
important.
I've actually got some rose quartz mala beads upstairs that I use. So you literally go round each one apart from the master bead and saying your intention. So you're saying it
I like that.
108 times, which is that master number that has been used for years and years. Yeah,
Very
you say it
nice.
regularly every day, basically, so
You'll
that
have to send me a
actually you're.
link to find some of those.
Oh, okay, I'll find some for you. I can't remember who I brought it through now, but I'm sure there are lots of different varieties.
Definitely.
Okay, so then the archetype of the new moon is the crone, and the crone is that wise elder, um, and she represents death and rebirth. So that's where we start with the new moon. We talked about the season. I've actually mentioned the earth signs in my little booklet here as well, so you can sort of bring it back to the element that we are and the season. And the
And when
chakras.
is this going live on your when are you sending this out?
So basically, as soon as I've completed my email, it's my lead magnet for my email, my freebie to give away. So when people sign up to my email, once I've created the sign up form, they'll be able to get this free of charge.
Awesome. This is going to be great. I can't wait to read it.
Oh, thanks. So then next we have the waxing crescent, which is 2.5 days after the new moon, approximately. It's the first visible phase after the darkness of the new moon. We see a small slither of the moon. It's a time for courage. So think about moving forwards and having faith in yourself, your goals and abilities. And then we've got the first quarter moon, which is 7 to 10.5 days from the new moon. So the moon forms what's called a square. So that means that the sun and the moon form that 90-degree angle from each other at this point. And we call it an opening square. And it's that square of consciousness, if I remember rightly. Oh, no, sorry, it's a square of action. So at this point, we have the challenge of taking actions towards our goals. And it can be uncomfortable to take that first step, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't try and do it anyway. But make sure that you do all your little bits of research first, depending on what it is that you're actually working with. It's taking that first step is always the hardest. Okay, so then we've that's the maiden is the archetype to go with this lunar phase. She is somebody who's naive, she takes risks, sees everything through rose-colored glasses, but she's also optimistic and full of joy. And this is the element of air, but I'll just be briefer here because I don't want to take too much of Lisa's time. Then next we have the waxing gibbous, which is 10.5 days to 15 days after the new moon. And we begin to tweak our intentions here if they need it, because where we might have started out with your intention, as we've taken the first little step towards what we want to work on, we might find that actually the intention changes slightly. So we'll tweak it here if needed. So honing your skills and making necessary adjustments. Then the full moon is 15 to 18.5 days after the new moon. And the sun and the moon are exactly opposite each other. So yeah, exactly opposite each other. It's a theme of full conviction. And we'll celebrate here anything that we've already achieved. And you never know, you might have actually fully achieved your goal here. But if you haven't, it's celebrating what you have achieved and giving yourself that little energy and inspiration to continue. It's a season of summer, and the archetype is the mother. She's fertile, she's nurturing, sensual, supporting others, and she likes to gather with other women or other people, her community, and celebrate all of those beautiful achievements. I think I'll just do one more, because I think if I do all of them, it's going to be a bit exhausting. So the third quarter moon, which is 7 to 10.5 days after the full moon, it makes that closing square. So as we say, the sun and the moon are at 90 degrees from each other again, but it's the final square of the lunar cycle. And the trust is the theme, trust and consciousness. So we set final deadlines here if needed, and it's about boundaries, knowing your boundaries. And that's symbolized by the wild woman. And she says that the status quo is not okay, and she will fully express herself. And she reasserts her self-esteem, and she's associated with the season of autumn, because actually, if we go back to that seed analogy that we planted at the new moon, eventually we'll get to a point where as the season leaves fall away, but as ourselves, we're less connected to our goal because we've likely achieved it, and we need to now go inward again and recuperate.
Love that.
Thank you. So yeah, that's a little bit of what the working with the lunar cycle guide is.
Love it.
Thank you. Do you have time at all to talk a little bit about the progressed moon, or are you needing to close up?
I have to head out.
Yeah, no worries.
But maybe we can do that in another video.
Maybe.
Because the progressed moon is an incredibly powerful piece, and I think that maybe even if we could get some people interacting with us maybe ahead of whatever we schedule, and pulling their
Yes.
charts and talking specifically about their progressed moon, I think would be a really big piece to this. So but it's one of my favorite astrological placements to really dig into. It's one that I feel like it doesn't get enough credit.
No.
But it's so powerful.
Yes.
I actually really quickly, I had a friend who had messaged me, this was a few months ago. He's like, I feel weird. I don't know what's going on. Like something's off. Like, can you look at my chart? So I did, and looking at transits, nothing's really going on. I don't see anything that's really cluing me in. Well, then I pull his progress chart, and his moon, he was literally at 0 degrees from,
Wow.
Pisces into Aries, which is such a huge shift to go from
Yes.
the end to the beginning, water to fire. I mean, there you go. So, but I would love to talk about that with you in another little video series.
Yes, by all means. Let's do it.
All right. Well, thank you
Well,
so much for hosting this today. This was so cool.
thank you, Lisa, for joining us. Would you like to tell people just where they can find you, and if they want to connect?
Sure. So I am mostly on Instagram. My username is at Lisa Marie Astrology. And you can also find my website at lisamarieastrology.com. Um, and I'd love to connect with anybody that has any questions, and I'm sure Emily and I will be together soon. We've got a lot of really cool content that just divinely comes to us in the moment. So, this will be
Yes.
really, really great. So, thank you all, whoever's watching this live, also anybody doing a replay. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this, and I hope you enjoyed it even a little bit, fraction of an amount of what we did, because this was great.
Mm. Thank you, Lisa, for joining us. So lovely. Take
Thank
care.
you. All right. Bye bye.